Now, I've been a minerals geologist here for about 20 years, and one of the things I do is look for minerals. Now, what I'm going to do today is tell you about the minerals that go into making a smartphone. Or should that be maybe making a phone smart? So here we go, it's the first. So here we go. This is my little picture. Some of you have probably got one of these things in your back pocket. How many of you have got a smartphone with you right now? Aha, cool, good stuff, okay. Now, this is probably the most common type of smartphone. This is an iPhone for those of you that don't know. Now, interestingly, there are something like 9 billion mobile phones, not just smartphones, all types of mobile phones on the planet. And every year, another 1.6 billion phones are made. Now, if you work it out, that's 50 new mobile phones being made every second of every day. It's absolutely a pretty staggering fact. Now, just some basics about what goes into making a phone. Now, it's fairly straightforward. Half of the phone, as you're not surprised, is plastic. Now, the plastic goes into the case and into some of the circuit boards. Another 15% of the smartphone is the glass on the screen and the ceramics that go into some of the computer chips. Then we talk about the metals in a phone, and I'm going to focus on the metals. Copper is 15% of the phone, and that goes into the wires and some of the circuit boards. And then we have a whole host of other metals. So we've got things like gold, silver, tungsten in a mobile phone. So there's all sorts of things that go into a phone. There we go. So I'm going to focus, like I said before, as I'm a minerals geologist, the sort of thing we do is look for the minerals where the metals occur in, okay? Now, how many here, does anyone here have an idea how many chemical elements there might be in a phone? Any idea at all? Well, let me give you a bit of a clue. Okay, now if you were paying attention on that first one, you might already have discounted the first one. So what do you reckon, 6? Are there only 6 elements in a mobile phone? Now we're talking about things like the carbon, the metal and all those different elements in a phone. Maybe 16. Anyone? Anyone brave enough to put the hand up for 16? What about 64? 64? That's a hell of a lot, isn't it, 64? Well, you've got me. There are 64, literally half of the periodic table will be found. Not just in one particular type of phone, but there's loads of different phones. There's hundreds probably of different makes of mobile phone. And what I've got here, I've got a list. Now, this is a bit technical maybe. This is what we call a periodic table. Now, is anyone good at reading this thing? Basically, this is a summary of all the elements that you'll find on the planet. And all these are abbreviations for all the different, for all the different elements. So we have things like hydrogen, and we have carbon, and we have W for tungsten, which is a bit of an odd one, because that comes from the mineral wolframite. That's why it's a W, okay. So anyone here would like to volunteer to come and help read some? Young man, come forward, step forward. What we want to do is, can you tell me some of the blue ones? Can you tell me what they are? For example, do you know what that one is?
Nitrogen.
That's close. Nitrogen is that one there. That's the N, okay. What about that one there? K. Kryptonite. It's not kryptonite. Now that's a bit mean maybe, okay, but what I've got here, I've actually spelt them out in full, because not even I know all of what these are, to be perfectly honest. So, here we go. Now, if you want to start from the top, can you read that one?
Praseodymium.
And that one?
Molly.
This one? Photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis.
That's right, yeah.
Neodymium.
Neodymium, yeah.
Geodrium. Dithydrium.
You're doing really well, mate. Okay, thank you very much. Now, I won't make you read them all. Okay, here you go, mate. Help yourself to one of these, okay. Okay. So, I see you didn't know that, did you? There is a reward for people that are brave enough to step forward. Okay, well, you did really well, mate. Now, not even I know how to pronounce some of these. Praseodymium, molybdenum, phosphorus. To be honest, what you should have done was start at this end with tin. And I was a bit mean, wasn't I? Because what I did, I deliberately put all the really long ones at the beginning and then went through to the little ones at the end here. Okay, right, here we go. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is, do you know where we would get these things? Now, anyone have a clue as to where we would get the metals from that go into a phone? Go on then, you have a go.
Down caves, under the ground, and in volcanoes.
Fantastic. Volcanoes is my favourite, definitely, yes. Well, basically, what we do as a geologist, we'll go out and we'll look for these minerals in rocks. So I'm going to start and talk about, if I can get this to come up. There we go. I'm going to talk about gold, okay, to start with. Well, this is gold. These are gold bars. You won't get many of these in an iPhone, but you do actually get a small amount of gold in a phone. Now, gold, like many metals that you find, are found in minerals, and we recognise the minerals and we recognise the rocks that they occur in, and we know.
That's a piece of ore.
Oh, lovely! I've got some gold ore as well, so we'll come to that. That's a bit of gold ore, everybody, and we know where to look for them. Okay, so basically we'll go out and we'll find the what they look for. Here we go. So hang on. Next thing I should have talking about, and you preempted me a bit there. This is a piece of gold-bearing ore. What's this rock called, mate? Do you know?
I don't know what it's called, but it's from South Africa.
South African. Okay. Well, we've got a couple of gold-bearing ores here. I know what this one is. Basically, one of my mineral exploration colleagues here in BGS gave me this piece of ore. Now, if you look really carefully, you can see some nice swirly bands in this piece of rock. Okay. This is called banded iron formation, so it's quite heavy, so it's got a lot of iron in it. But if you look carefully, well, you don't have to look that carefully, you can see the grey bands in here. This is quartz, and the gold is typically found with the quartz, okay? Now, when we look for rocks like this, it's called mineral exploration. Gold, unfortunately, you can't see the gold. It's not what we call visible gold, okay? It's really microscopic, and it occurs in really tiny amounts in the rock. So it's quite hard to spot. What we do, okay, we know what rocks we're looking for. We start with a geological map. So for those that don't know, this is basically a lot of swirly patterns of colours of rocks. Basically, each of these different colours is a different type of rock. So if we're lucky, whoops, we'll find gold. If we're lucky, we'll find maybe the brown one, for example, might be the banded iron formation. Maybe the pink one might be this one here. So we'll basically go to these areas and we'll start doing some exploration work. There we go. Let me just get my next piece of paper. Right, now I said before that if we're looking for gold, it occurs in really small amounts. In fact, gold, for it to be economic to work, so if you actually open a mine, it has to be there present in certain amounts. Now, as small as 1 part per million. Now, does anyone here have a clue as to what 1 part per million is? Let me give you a clue. Right, okay, right. Remember what I did before? Is there any volunteer here that would like to have a stab at making, who knows, is 1 part per million 1 gram in 100 grams? What do you reckon, guys? 1 gram in 100 kilos? How about 1 gram in a ton? Hands up for 1 gram in a ton. That was the first hand up. Okay. Well, if you think about it, a ton is made up of 1 million grams. So if you have 1 gram of gold in 1 million grams, that's 1 part in 1 million, okay? So typically, an ore deposit for gold would have something between 1 part per million and 10 parts per million. It's a really tiny amount. So basically, when we go out into the field and we look for these things, we have to take our hammer and, I've got it here somewhere, our trusty hand lens. Always have a hand lens to look at your rocks, because like I said before, guys, these things are really microscopic. So when we look at rocks, these are pretty vital for us to have a look and see what they're like. And this is obvious. This is what we use for taking our samples, okay? We'll go out to that area that we saw just there. We'll find the rocks. We might even drill a big hole going right down and take out what we call a core, which is like a long tube of rock going down maybe 50, 100, 200 meters. We'll bring that to the surface and then we'll break it up. We'll take that rock and send it to the laboratory, and then we'll do some analysis, okay? And that's when the fun starts, because if we find that we've got more than 1 part per million, that's when we can think about possibly opening a gold mine to actually mine the material. There we go. Right, now, bear with me again. There we go. Now I'm a gold miner, okay? Basically, what do we have to do when we found our material, when we're going to set our gold mine up? Well, as a minerals geologist, I've been to plenty of places where they actually dig rocks out of the ground, and there's two ways that you do it. One is a surface operation, what you call a quarry. So this is basically a big hole in the ground that's open to the air. More typically for gold, we'll dig a hole in the ground and we'll go underground. So that's what we call a mine. So we'll dig a gold mine. So we extract the material. So we'll get our rock like this and we'll smash it to pieces until in fact we'll grind it down to maybe less than sand sized. So the idea is that all of the different minerals are all separated from each other. Then we'll use mineral processing equipment. Now gold is really heavy and it's quite easy to separate, although sometimes we have to use chemicals to dissolve the gold and concentrate it. When we've got a concentrate of gold, what we'll do then is we'll melt it and we'll make our gold bars, and then we've got our metal. Fantastic. So is that the solution? But basically we've got, in fact no, I should have said, I don't have any gold bars here. This is the closest I could find. Here we go. But what I do have, let's have another volunteer this time. Who's brave enough? Okay, guys. Don't you? Yes, yeah. Now, I've got two other pieces of metal here that are produced in a very similar way, okay? Hold your hands out. Take that one and take this one. Now, what can you tell? What's the difference between these two pieces of metal?
That one's really light, that one's heavy.
That one's exactly right. What's your name?
Harvey.
Harvey spotted it exactly. This one's really light, this one's really heavy. Okay, this is aluminium, and basically aluminium is a really lightweight, strong metal that we use to make the structure of a phone. This is tungsten, which is a really dense metal, which makes it feel really heavy. Now there's a tiny piece of tungsten in your mobile phone, so that when your phone rings, it makes your phone vibrate. Because it's so heavy, it wobbles the whole phone. You know, we've done our mineral exploration, we've found our metal, and job's a good one. However, unfortunately, it's not quite as simple as that. Oh, don't let me paper run away. It's not quite as simple as that. Many people are worried that we're going to run out of metal. Now, I can tell you as a geologist, it's a massive planet, and there's loads of resources. We've barely scratched the surface when it comes to producing materials. The problem is that the production of metals and other minerals is concentrated in a few countries around the world. One of the biggest producers of materials like metal on the planet is China. Now, if countries like China decide that, well, actually, we're not going to export metal anymore, we're going to make our own products, which is fair enough, up to them. Countries like Europe and North America often don't have their own metal resources. They're going to really struggle to make the products that they need, okay? Now, what is the solution to this problem? Well, you just say, well, let's just go and do a bit more mineral exploration. If the Chinese suddenly say, that's it, bang, no more metal production, our companies would say, oh, quick, we better find some more. The problem is, if we send a geologist out into the field with his hammer and his hard hat to go and find some more rocks, it takes between 5 and 10 years from finding that rock in the ground to actually producing metal at the end of it. In that 5 to 10 years, that company won't have stuck around in the UK, it would have shifted to China. And that was the point, basically. The Chinese want to find that they want to actually produce their own products. So, is there another solution to this? Whoops. There we go. Right. Well, you might guess what this one's about, okay? One possible solution is that we take the metals that we find in old mobile phones. Let's see where I am. There we go. There we go. Right. Now, there are probably, as I mentioned before, there's like 9 billion phones on the planet. Not all those phones are working. There are probably hundreds of millions, probably billions of old mobile phones knocking around. Now, if we took those mobile phones, say we had, instead of a ton of rock, we had a ton of mobile phones, okay, we could reclaim something like 340 grams of gold from those mobile phones. If you think back to the rock, our piece of rock has only got 1 gram per ton, okay? So actually, 1 gram, 340 grams, that seems a lot more attractive. Not only that, those phones have all sorts of other metals in them as well. You can get 3.5 kilograms of silver. You can get 130 kilograms of copper. So there's loads of value in old mobile phones. So, hands up, who has an old mobile phone in a drawer back home? Okay, hands up, everyone who's got at least one. Keep your hands up, everybody. Hands up if you've got more than 2. Hands up if you've got more than 3. Hands up if you've got more than 4. Hands up if you've got more than 5. Right, okay. You, sir, at the back. What's your name, sir? Paul. Paul. What are you going to do with all these phones, Paul?
They'll just sit in the drawer, won't they?
Well, I think if there's a world shortage of mobile phones, we know where to start.
They'll know where to come, won't they?
Exactly, yeah. So, who's got a smartphone with them? Has anyone got a smartphone with them? Can you get your smartphone at me? Just show me your smartphone, yeah? At your pocket. Let me have a look. Okay. Let's have a look. Okay. Any over this side? Any smartphones this side? Okay, let's have a volunteer. Young man here, what's your name?
I'm Charlie.
Charlie, nice to meet you, Charlie. Can I borrow your phone, mate?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to give my sister a quick call in Australia. No, I'm only joking, Charlie. Okay, right. So, what would we do if we had a ton of mobile phones? How are we going to get the metal out of this mobile phone? What do you reckon?
You break it.
That's a good idea. Basically, it's the same as when we're producing metal from rocks. We've got to take this and we've got to smash it to pieces. So if you don't mind, Charlie, I'm just going to see if I can get some metal out of your phone. Using my trusty geological hammer, let's see what we can do with this big boy. One mobile phone, one hammer.
There's rubbish anywhere on it.
Oh dear. They're pretty tough, these things. If you hadn't already guessed, Charlie is my assistant. A round of applause for Charlie, please, everybody. Although, I don't know what he's going to tell his mum when he goes home tonight. He's really in trouble now. Okay, everybody. Cool. So, where am I? Okay, right. So, is that the solution? Do you think that's the solution to our problem? Should we just get all the mobile phones in? Well, the trouble is, mobile phones these days use a hell of a lot more metal. I shouldn't have said that. They use a lot more metal than they used to in the past, okay? Also, mobile phones use metals which weren't used in old mobile phones, so we'll have a problem trying to get those particular metals. Also, mobile phones are scattered right across the planet in sock drawers like Paul's, so we're going to have a real problem gathering them together. And actually, at the moment, only 1% of mobile phones are recycled for their metal content. So maybe recycling isn't the solution, and it might be part of the solution, but we're going to have to keep on mining. And as we say around these parts, if I can show you, if it can't be grown, it has to be mined. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to be around for another 10 minutes if you want to have a chat. Thank you very much.